Do hobbits have the most advanced society of all races in Middle-earth? Now, when you think of hobbits, you might picture cozy homes, lots of food, and quiet, peaceful living. But what if I told you their society is actually more forward-thinking than you might expect? Let's dive in and break it down. First, let's talk about leadership. When most people think of powerful rulers in Middle-earth, they probably think of elves, dwarves, men, kings, queens, monarchs ruling with centuries-old bloodlines. But hobbits appear to have a more democratic system than all of them. In Hobbit society, the mayor of the Shire isn't some monarch or hereditary ruler. The mayor is elected by the people of the Shire. Every 7 years, hobbits vote to choose their leader. And while the mayor's role might seem ceremonial, this election system is a huge contrast to the dynastic monarchies of the other races. Meanwhile, take a look at elves, men, and dwarves. They operate on a system where leadership is passed down through bloodlines. Whether it's Aragorn in Gondor, Thranduil in Mirkwood, or Dane Ironfoot in Erebor, leadership in these societies is typically inherited, not elected. So right off the bat, hobbits seem to have a more democratic approach to governing their people. Now let's get into something that's pretty unique to hobbits, their legal system. Hobbits love a good contract. In fact, their legal system relies heavily on written agreements, especially when it comes to property, inheritance, and trade. Take Bilbo Baggins, for example. He didn't just leave behind his belongings for his relatives to fight over. No, he had a will that laid out exactly what would happen to his property. That's not something you see a lot in Middle-earth. Hobbits take contracts seriously, and they abide by them. It's part of their orderly and predictable society. Compare that to elves, men, and dwarves. Sure, they have laws, but their societies are more informal when it comes to transactions. In places like Gondor or Mirkwood, deals might be struck, but they're not usually set down in legal documents or contracts. A lot of it is based on personal trust or the will of the ruler. It's a more feudal system rather than one based on formal written agreements. One of the most striking things about Hobbit society is its unwavering peacefulness. While the rest of Middle-earth is often embroiled in war and conflict, the Shire stands out as a land where peace is not just a temporary lull between battles, it's a way of life. For centuries, the hobbits have managed to keep their world free from the chaos that plagues the larger realms. Unlike the elves who have faced countless wars with Morgoth and Sauron, or the men of Gondor and Rohan who are always preparing for battle, hobbits live a life free of the fear of war. This focus on peace has allowed them to cultivate a stable society where their greatest concerns are things like planting the best crops or making sure their pipes are well stocked. And this isn't just about avoiding war. Hobbits place a high value on personal peace. The Shire is full of small, tight-knit communities where everyone knows each other. There's a certain calmness in their daily routines, enjoying simple pleasures like eating, chatting with neighbors, or working the land. Their focus on peace in their day-to-day lives creates a calm, orderly society, which allows for a kind of stability that many other races in Middle-earth can only dream of. Think about it, hobbits have no interest in power struggles, conquest, or expanding their borders. Their idea of a conflict is the occasional dispute over land ownership or who should inherit a particular piece of property. This peaceful nature doesn't just keep the Shire safe, it's an essential part of what makes the Hobbit society work. Without the threat of war or conflict, hobbits can focus on sustainable living, community building, and the small yet significant details of everyday life. Which leads us to environmental stewardship and love of nature. Another incredible aspect of Hobbit society is their deep connection to the land. Hobbits are not just farmers, they are stewards of the environment. Their love for nature is reflected in every aspect of their lives, from the way they cultivate the land to their overall respect for the environment. They've created a way of life that revolves around sustainability, living in harmony with nature rather than exploiting it. In contrast, other races in Middle-earth often see nature as something to conquer or exploit. The dwarves mine deep into the earth, extracting precious resources, and men are constantly engaged in war or empire expansion, often damaging the landscape in the process. And when we think about wealth in the Shire, it's important to remember that even the families with less still live incredibly comfortable and peaceful lives. The Shire, as a whole, is a place of abundance, where most hobbits, regardless of their economic standing, enjoy a lifestyle that's marked by simplicity and contentment. Take families like the Gamgees, for instance. While Samwise's family isn't wealthy in the same way the Bagginses or the Tooks are, they still live in a beautiful home with a lovely garden, and they have more than enough to get by. Sam's father, the Gaffer, works hard as a gardener for the Baggins family, And even without great wealth, the Gamgees lead a peaceful, comfortable life. One of the most defining and advanced aspects of Hobbit society is the way they've built such tight-knit communities. Everyone knows everyone, and that connection goes beyond just living in the same area. The Hobbits have created a culture where being part of a close, tight-knit community is essential for personal well-being. In the Shire, no one is isolated. There's a real sense of interdependence. People help one another, share what they have, and look out for each other. This kind of mutual care fosters a sense of belonging that is often missing in other cultures, like our own. Imagine how comforting it must be to know that no matter what happens, your neighbors are there to support you. Now let's take a step back for a moment and consider how the Shire's way of life might compare to some of the happiest places in the real world. It's not always about the wealth that you have, but the quality of the life that you lead. We've all heard of countries where happiness is high, like Nordic countries, places like Denmark, Finland, and Norway, where people have a great work-life balance, strong community ties, and a deep connection to nature. These countries often rank at the top of the global happiness indexes, and it's not because they have the most money. They don't even have the highest income levels in the world. What they do have is a strong sense of community, a culture of cooperation, and a deep respect for nature and personal well-being. Their societies focus on things like access to nature, work-life balance, and social support, which makes people feel secure, content, and connected. Similarly, in places like the Netherlands, there's a high emphasis on community living and quality over quantity. It's about having time to spend with family and friends, access to green spaces, and a lifestyle that values simplicity and sustainability over consumerism. In fact, research shows that people in these countries often prioritize connection over material wealth, and that they live in ways that foster personal happiness and collective well-being. Now let's bring this back to the Shire. Like these real-world examples, Hobbit society thrives not on material wealth, but on simple pleasures. Good food, good company, and a life that's centered around community and nature. Hobbits don't need grand palaces like Minas Tirith or the sprawling riches of Erebor to live happy lives. Instead, they focus on balance, family, and the joys of everyday living. And that's what makes their society so appealing. So when we think about the Hobbits and their society, maybe it's not all that surprising that they live the way they do. The true wealth of the Shire is in its values, and maybe, just maybe, that's something we can all learn from. After all, happiness doesn't always come from having more. Sometimes it's about making the most of what you've got. Of course, this is just my opinion, but I think the Hobbits' approach to governance and society is incredibly forward-thinking compared to the monarchies and bloodline-based leadership seen in elves, men, and dwarves. So let me know what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into Middle-earth. Thank you all for watching. More videos coming soon, so I'll catch you later. Bye.